I'm getting through a backlog of requests, so bear with me while I do this. Hope y'all are having a good Christmas Eve. Mine's going pretty good so far. So first things first is make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button. TheSoftSpokenShaman@gmail.com is the place to hit me up if you have questions, comments, if you want to sponsor a video, if you want to buy my books. That's basically the place to get in touch. The other thing too is for the stream, if you're listening, I understand I'm not going to have a lot of listeners on this because it's Christmas Eve, people are with their families, whatever. Me, I do family stuff Thanksgiving, Christmas not so much, so that's why I'm doing my thing now. But I would say, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. That's what happens. Yeah, I was going to say, if you got a question or comment or whatever, leave a super chat. I'll get to it. Basically, when I do these streams, I put a post-it note over the chat so it just doesn't distract me or anything like that. I can do my spiel. Then I check it afterwards, and that's what that is. And that way I can also avoid any nasty, it's the world as it is right now. Nasty people gravitate to people like me who have their life together and enjoy their life. And it's kind of what it is. So. But I try to avoid those people as best as I can. So, how do you avoid loneliness? First off, what I would say about that is you can't avoid loneliness if you have a certain personality type. Now, with the advent of the internet and all the social media stuff, comes, trolling and stuff like that. And trolling, when the internet was new, trolling used to be just like a characteristic. But now, trolling has become people's full-time personalities. And, when trolling and hatred becomes your full-time personality, you are no longer able to be friendly with people. You're no longer open to that. So that's a huge problem. There's so many people like that now. It's just impossible for them. They'll never be able to have friends. They'll never be able to be friendly with people. They'll never be able to be open enough to experience social experiences with other people, because they've got that crab apple sort of outlook and that way of doing things. And with the internet, also with the whole trolling phenomenon, it's brought about a whole new degree of snarkiness and just rudeness that people once again have made their entire personality. So it's no wonder to most people that with the internet, with social media, obviously, a lot of people are watching their friendships dwindle. And again, the attitude is part of that. The attitude that social media kind of coddles and brings about is one of snarkiness, one of suspicion, one of rudeness, one of just ire and anger. It seems to breed that, just being cutthroat, going for the jugular with people, not being long-suffering and patient with people. The one negative with the internet is that it's really, really dealt a fatal blow to compassion. When you're on the internet, when you're on social media, just the way that people interact when there's no responsibility, no accountability, you'll see why compassion is pretty much bereft on the internet, because most people don't really see a reason for that. If you can just say nasty things with no consequences, you can just inject barbs and poison at people with no consequences. I mean, you're fostering an environment where people are not going to be nice and friendly. So the thumbnail I use for this video is of a LAN party, a local area network party from the 90s. And when the internet was new, local area network or LAN parties were a thing. And what it basically was is people would get together in a room, and they'd have their own device, their console, their computer, and they'd connect to the same network and they'd play, multiplayer games, whether it be, like Counter-Strike, or I remember that was one of the popular ones. That's the thing that people did. And it's so sad because the beginning of the internet, when people were doing stuff like that, it actually did foster community And it did foster friendship and people grouping together and enjoying each other's company, using that new technology, but still being in the same physical proximity to each other. Nowadays, obviously, that's been lost. That doesn't happen all that much anymore. And the question is, can you still experience that level of positivity and camaraderie that you got from the old LAN parties of the 90s and the early 2000s? Can you do that with the new technologies of the internet without meeting in person? For instance, over, Discord or over, Twitch or whatever. And I just unfortunately don't think you can. Maybe it hasn't been conclusively proven, but I mean, people, you can see it's not the same thing. And so, obviously, people who are going to let these technologies dictate, how they live are going to realize that they're going to be low on friends. They're going to be running on empty when it comes to friendships and stuff like that. And it's just the way it is. And there's nothing that can be done about it. Unfortunately, that saying, the medium is the message, is true. And a lot of people allow whatever the medium is at the time to become their personality, to become and dictate what they do, who they are, how they communicate. And that's that, So it's in vogue for a lot of people to not have friends. They may bitch about it, but it's really in vogue to be, a lone wolf and complaining about it and being dark. And, look at all the Zoomer heroes like, Billie Eilish, right? That's the whole vibe that these people are going for is, yeah, I'm so weird. I'm so kooky. I'm by myself. I don't have any friends, and that's kind of what it is. And, I think it's silly. A lot of older people think it's silly, but that's just the way of the world. You're not going to have friends unless you can burst out of that comfort zone. And societally speaking right now, the comfort zone is being antisocial. Literally, being antisocial is the comfort zone of our society right now. And so if people can't find a way to dig out of that, they're not going to have friends. Because what you see society-wide is a bunch of people who would love to have friends, but they're too scared to actually go out and try to meet people or try to connect in any meaningful way. Because as I said, our societal comfort zone really is this sort of snarky, antisocial personality that almost everybody has nowadays. You see it on TikTok, you see it on YouTube, you see it in real life. And so, when that's normalized, it's hard for people to get out of that. And if you really think about it, you'll see that what I'm saying appears to be true. Everybody's kind of got that sort of chip on their shoulder to them, And how can you make friends? How can you overcome loneliness when that's what you're dealing with? I don't think you can. So it's sad because, even within the past 10 years, there was still the Meetup app, those Meetup groups, which were helpful for people, hiking groups, whatever, pottery groups, cooking groups. But now, people yet again have to adapt because with the pandemic really killed that meetup.com or Meetup app or whatever it was. Me personally, I never used it. Not because I'm against it, I just never did because I guess at the time that was popular. I did have a friend group, where I lived, so it wasn't really necessary for me. But I see now that, people really are almost, like sentimental even over that. And that was a phenomenon, 10 years ago, even less than 10 years ago. So right now, people are kind of at a standstill. What do you do? What technologies do you use? Do you eschew the technologies and you just try to, go raw, like the days of old and go out and meet people in the wild? How do you get over people's stranger danger? How do you get over that snarky, antisocial personality archetype that everybody's in that I talked about? Nobody really knows, but, you got to go out and try. And I don't know. For me, I live in Northwest Arkansas, in a populated area, I guess you could say. And I talk to people out in the wild and it goes well. I make friends here, maybe not friends, but acquaintances quite easily. I was up, story time, I was up in Strafford, Missouri the other day. I had a customer up there. And after I was down, that's like basically the rich part of Springfield, where all the doctors and lawyers and stuff live. And after I got done with that, I went down to over this suburb of Springfield called Ozark. I went down to Ozark because I bought a couple windows on Facebook Marketplace, and come to think of it, when I meet up the seller, I find out he's a young cat. He's like 24 years old. He's a firefighter, but he's also a construction guy. So, we were chopping it up for a little bit, talking about construction, talking about, he wanted to know, hey, why are you building out of concrete? Because it's not typical really. And so we got to talking about that, got talking about, different building types, different siding materials, fiber cement, metal, vinyl, yada, yada. Talking about a whole bunch of different things and talking about women as you do. He was a young cat, but he was married his high school sweetheart, had a kid or two, So we're talking about that. And so oftentimes, I'll find that even you can become friendly and chummy with people through the least likely of places like Facebook Marketplace. Now, of course, sometimes you're going to deal with sellers who are jerks, they just want to sell whatever they're selling and then you get out of their hair. But oftentimes I notice that, I meet people and, maybe it's just my personality, I don't know, but I tend to, meet people who are friendly. So I think there's kind of like a societal-wide stranger danger after the pandemic where people want to make friends, but they're scared. They don't know what to do. They feel like everybody's off-putting, but what's really happening is that you're off-putting, and because of that, people are mirroring what you're giving out, If you are off-putting, then people are going to mirror that right back at you like a chameleon. And if you're not off-putting, if you're social, if you're talkative, if you're amicable, I don't know how many words I can string together, then you're going to find that people are going to be open to you. Not all the time. There are people who are antisocial, people who are not, social butterflies. But you will find that if you're open, most people will open up to you. So that age-old wisdom, be the change you want to see, that really applies if you're trying to make friends. The hardest thing is you got to break out of your shell and you got to break out of being a little antisocial, perpetually online weirdo, if you want to make friends. It's just, when you go to the store and somebody says, hey, that's a cool hat. Hey, that's a cool earring. Hey, I like your tattoo. Instead of being weird and going, oh, thanks, say, oh, thanks, this is the meaning behind it, and then before you know it, a conversation has struck. And all it took was that little bit of Tinder and kindling, not the app, but just that little spark of somebody was curious or you were curious about something, and then now you get a conversation going. And it's that simple. But, people, that the pandemic really did sour that for a lot of people, where I think a lot of people lost that ability even, or it's like a dull blade, they're like, you got to sharpen it. So, but that's really how you do it. I mean, I have no problem meeting people where I am. And like I said, I live in a rural environment. My town doesn't have more than 1,500 people, if that. But I live, within 20 miles of the major population centers here. So, I'm out and about every day. I have no problem meeting people. There's nothing, particularly social butterfly-y about me. I'm not antisocial, but I'm not like a social butterfly. So I really think it just, as long as you're a normal person, you're not a weirdo, there's hope for you. The thing is, a lot of times when you have a first conversation with a person, it is a little daunting for people because it's almost like a dog. Dogs sniff each other's butts, to tell if they're friend or foe, An initial conversation with another human being is the equivalent of dogs sniffing butts. You're kind of figuring out, you're kind of like, is this person cool? You're kind of figuring out, well, will I jibe with this person? Will I vibe with this person? Is this person passing the general vibe check? Are they not a weirdo? Are they normal enough? And that's kind of what it is. The problem is just, again, people don't want to try nowadays. And if you don't want to try, well, there's not much hope. It's like anything else. I mean, you want to be a basketball player, but you're not going to, shoot hoops. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to be a grade A basketball player in your mind, in fantasy, but in the real world, not so much. And I don't know. I guess, a lot of people, it's kind of like a residue from the pandemic. A lot of people just, their social skills aren't what they used to be. And I think if you really did a poll for the vast amount of people, you realize that a lot of people just don't have that dog in them like they did before the pandemic when things were normal. The society's become like snuggified, I guess, if I could make up a word. Comfort, people wearing Snuggies, people wearing PJs in public, people just wanting to be comfy at the expense of having a social life, that's how you could explain America nowadays, at least. It's just people have given into wanting comfort over having a fulfilling social and community life. And, I mean, you could see this, predictive programming, that Disney movie WALL-E from, I believe, 2007 or 2009, that was released like right when the iPhone was new, and it was predictive programming. People would love sitting in their hover chairs, gaining weight, right? And watching their tablets, watching their screens, over socializing. And that's what you see nowadays. There's no more desire for meaningful human connection. It's just, give me the digital pacifier. And that's it. Now, obviously there's great things you can do with a digital pacifier, but it's also, a crutch. And it's not fungible. It's no alternative to the real article, which is talking with people meaningfully. So, for the donor for this video, I hope I answered your question. That's how you get over loneliness. I mean, there's really maybe you were looking for some sort of easy way or some sort of, rabbit out of a hat, Jack in the Box type of, wham bam, thank you ma'am, this is the easy prepackaged microwavable way to go make a friend. But that doesn't exist, man, Now, the internet does offer a cheat code, you can meet people online, but the problem is eventually, for it to be the real article, you're going to have to make it where you bridge the gap from online to offline. Otherwise, it's not truly a friend, It's a gray area, whether you call it a parasocial relationship or whatnot. It's a gray area. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people fall flat on their face with the relationships they spark online, is that they never take it to the next level, which is meeting online or meeting offline, And what can you do? I mean, again, if you're a human being and you have heart, you have real heart, you're going to make it happen, But if you don't have heart, if you're lukewarm, if you're milk toast, if you're a lukewarm individual, then, you're going to settle for the alternatives the elites have given you, which is basically your digital pacifiers, your apps online, your social media, that pales in comparison to the real thing. And it's amazing to me. It's really just amazing to me that they've created these alternatives, these pacifiers, as I say, to, quench your thirst when you can't get the real thing. It's like you have a craving for milk, but you can't find the real thing, so you drink oat milk instead. And anyways, that's all the time I have for you today. As always, I only respond to super chat and super thanks comments. I do not respond to public comments from people I don't know. And I only do videos, sponsored content from people who email me with questions or comments. That's what I do on this channel. So you have a question or you have a comment that you want addressed, you can email me at thesoftspokenshaman@gmail.com. Those are the only ones that I do respond to. So that's the best way to get in touch. And until tomorrow, I'll be getting back to my backlog and answering a couple other requests that I had. Have a good Christmas Eve. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.